Emily I'm Sue Moan. I've been here for quite a while, and I just kind of work as a co-MC with one of the people from Wolf Ridge. This is Emily. Emily, say hello.
Hello, I'm in place of Joe today, who had a book club to be at, so he couldn't be at this club. He's at his other club today.
Yeah, he's been talking big on this book called Naming Nature. Have you heard of that? Anybody? It has to do with the whole how the different nomenclature for the species and stuff, and it's very historical, but pertinent still to today. To hear Joe speak, it's really fun. He gets very, very excited about it. So I need to pick it up, but Naming Nature is what he's looking.
I think he's written about it on his blog like maybe 3 times now. So
I think
yeah,
so,
he's really excited about it.
I think so too. Well, we have a little bit of a small group right now. Anybody, thinking about getting outside, or things that they're excited to do, or questions about how do I get outside in spring? So we can kind of start thinking about this before we're going to let Sue introduce herself more and take it away.
I saw my first pair of geese 2 days ago when I was skiing on Glen Lake in Minnetonka. So I had not seen any migratory birds whatsoever for that.
That's so exciting. How many were there, Larry?
There were, it looked like a pair on, they're setting up a territory basically. So.
Great. Oh my gosh, fun.
It's something. So,
Larry, I have a question. How can you tell if they are, how can you tell if they're migratory or if they're residents year round? Because you see a lot of geese in the, is it because they were in pairs or?
Well, that's a, now see, I have not seen.
Because you do see a lot of geese.
Yeah, I haven't seen a goose since November. So, I mean, if there are some birds that aren't migrating, I wasn't aware of it. So maybe they weren't migratory, but I mean, March 8th, there should be some geese flying overhead now. I
that
think
makes sense.
So I really don't know.
Go down to Shakopee in the Minnesota River. There's an open spot. There's a natural hot springs, and that's where a lot of trumpeters are there in the wintertime, along with hundreds of mallards and lots of Canadian geese.
Okay.
But everything's dispersing now except for the mallards. They will stay there almost the whole year. But yeah, fewer and fewer trumpeters are there, so they're fine. They're dispersing, going to be nesting. I agree.
Now, where is that? Where you said there was a hot spring, Sue?
Yes, if you it's called Memorial Park in Shakopee. It's right by the Dangerfields restaurant. If you like to go, you can have a nice meal. The windows are right out there. Otherwise, there's a nice walking path. And if you could walk all the way to the Minnesota Landing, which is a Three Rivers Park. It's beautiful down there.
Great, thank you. Shakopee.
Yeah, not too far. Hi,
Yeah.
Leanne.
Hi, everybody. I live in the Brainerd Lakes area, and the Northland Arboretum is our sponsor for our Master Naturalist chapter, and they some students for a capstone project put these nature's knapsacks together last year. So there's a kids corner at the Arb, and they can be checked out, these knapsacks. So for winter, we did a lichen pack. I had a bunch of photos and laminated them and put little identification bits on the back of the card, and the cards are in a little ring. So, and they can go out on the snowshoe trail. There's an extensive snowshoe trail area, and the lichens really are right there on the trees. They don't have to go too far off the path. So some of those have gotten checked out, and so this winter, so that's kind of cool. And but we're looking to change up the activities for spring, and for the Arb, they're doing an Arbor Day presentation, or not a presentation, event on the 30th of April. So the Nature's Knapsacks will be out on the lawn and inviting kids and families to use them and discover them. So I'm hoping to find something new for the springtime that kids can do or use or make that they can take home.
That
that
sounds
our-
fun, Leanne.
Was that our segue to Sue?
I think it is because I think Sue might have some ideas for you.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. My name is Sue Dahl. I am a naturalist at Wargo Nature Center, which is in the northern suburbs. We're part of Anoka County Parks, the closest city to us. We're actually located, Wargo's in Lino Lakes, Minnesota, but we're near Centerville, Minnesota, if you know where that is. And so I wanted to just pop on and give everyone some ideas of just some really like quick, like low or no material type activities that can get you outside. And I would love to know too, if you could put in the chat, like what you do, if you're a teacher, what grades do you teach, or, you know, if you are a naturalist, what age groups do you work with, where do you work, all that good stuff, because I would love to kind of see and hear about who is around. I'm going to open the chat for a second so I can see, but I will also start my presentation here. Let's see.
We have Susan is in preschool at Maplewood, Minnesota.
Oh, awesome. Let's see here.
Emily, our host, is a naturalist at Wolf Ridge. She teaches all ages. Jerry Wenzel is pre-service teachers, pre-K to 6th grade. Oh, somewhere my chat disappeared. We'll find it again.
Did I do something?
No, I did something. No, you. No,
You are
not
fine.
really. Yeah.
All
We have Juliana. Oops. Oh, we're having lots of fun people. We have Juliana, who is K-12 school programs coordinator. Oh, the Great Lakes Aquarium. Yes, Juliana.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. We have pre-K in Georgia. Hey, great.
Bring your
Shout out
sunshine
to
up here.
Georgia. There, you've got to be having some real springtime stuff down there. You have to laugh at us.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay. So yeah, let me know if more people comment, Sue, that would be awesome. And then can you
You
guys
bet.
see
I'll let you get
my
going.
screen? Yeah, can you see
Mhm.
everything okay? Can you see my presentation?
Right now I see it as like the presenter view.
Oh, well, we don't want that. Let's see.
Now, if you would make that screen like a full screen. There we go.
Okay, that's better, huh? Okay. All right. Well, I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. I am an environmental educator, like I said. And I just wanted to interject a little bit of humor into this because my friends think I like run around in fields and sing. I think that's what the government thinks I do, is hug trees. It's definitely what some of my friends think I do. Crawling through the woods, I do that too. We won't talk about the one in the corner. But what gets me sometimes is, you know, just all the emails and the paperwork that I have to do. It's the worst part of the job, but because I have such a fun job, it's okay. So I also wanted to take just a moment too, and if you have experience like trying to get kids outside or have taken kids outside or want to but haven't been able to, would you type in the chat just so I can kind of like maybe formulate things? I'm not going to change things too much because I'm not good at thinking on the fly, but maybe for a future presentation, it would be good to know. And I'm going to be sipping on some tea here too. I have a bit of a cold, so I don't want to be hacking and coughing through this presentation. While you're typing in the chat though, these are some things that I have heard from teachers. So of course, with my job, field trips, like schools come out to Wargo Nature Center for, you know, generally like a 2-hour class. Sometimes we go to schools and use their outdoor spaces. to teach a class. During the winter time, a lot of what we do at Wargo is we go into schools and do what's called outreach presentations about a Minnesota animal. And then I also am a school naturalist for elementary school in White Bear Lake. So here and there, I talk to teachers, and just some of these challenges are kind of like personal things that I have encountered too. And so I just wanted to recognize these challenges and maybe give you some strategies too for dealing with these things. I know a lot of people are concerned with student safety. And the weird thing is, so I have been a naturalist for 20 years, and I have never had a kid with a school group just like run off anywhere. I had it happen with a camper once, so I won't say ever, but it is just kind of amazing to me that there's like this like hive or group mind that kids just like stay together when they're outside. And I'm not saying like you shouldn't set up boundaries and things like that, but maybe that'll put some of your mind at ease. And, you know, it's overwhelming to get outside. And if you don't know anything about the local plants and animals, there's so many things and kids are so curious. And I know that can intimidate a lot of people. So I do have a resource at the end to help with that. I run into not only students, but teachers too, that are just not crazy about going outside and maybe getting dirty, maybe encountering a bug. So I know that can be a challenge as well. Weather, of course, in Minnesota, we have these fabulous 4 seasons. And again, kids and teachers, I have run into aren't so crazy about going out when it's cold or wet, which, you know, is valid. You need a certain type of clothing to go outside in the winter or in the rain and be comfortable. And a lot of kids just don't have that type of gear because it's expensive and kids grow fast. And so, you know, I totally get it, that can be a barrier to getting outside. And then just time, right? Like everyone's so busy, especially, you know, this year in the classroom, things are just not what they were. So everyone's kind of learning and adapting real quick, and there maybe just doesn't seem to be enough time to get inside, or not inside, outside. I'm gonna go outside. But I wanted to remind people that going outside is like building a muscle. And I've had teachers tell this to me too, the ones that like to go outside with their kids and are trying to get their other teacher friends to get outside too. So it just takes practice, and it takes doing it, you know, even though you all are educators, it's still scary to do new things. And when it's out of your routine, it just takes a little extra effort. But once you do it and start small and keep going and going, it'll get easier. So you're building that outdoor muscle. So a few things just to get started is, of course, like look around your site. You might want to scope out like exactly where you want to go. A lot of the activities I have are more kind of like games. I mean, you can definitely roll some education into any one of these activities. But if you're just looking for a place to get started and you want to go outside and have fun, that's a good way to experience the outdoors as well. So scope things out, look if there's, you know, a place that you can go to do these activities. Nature is right outside the front door of your school, of your building. I think that is really important to recognize. I ask kids all the time when I'm out in front of their school, it's like, is there nature here? And they're like, no, not really. But there's so much. So you don't need like a fancy outdoor classroom. You just literally need a little bit of grass. Maybe the grass is growing in a crack on the sidewalk, some rocks. So you do not need much to get outside. And after I told you all that, I have this picture of all this stuff because I don't want people to think it's like super overwhelming. Like I need to pack this big bag full of stuff to get kids outside. You do not need that. So do the KISS principle, KISS, keep it simple, blank. You just need to walk out the door. Of course, like with appropriate clothing on the kids, but you know, the kids don't need backpacks. They don't need their water bottle. They'll be fine. You don't really need anything. But as you feel more comfortable, or if you're like ready to take it to the next level, a place to sit is nice. I put this like beautiful outdoor classroom picture in here, but I know not everybody has that. I don't have that anywhere that I teach. That's like the dream. But just grab a portable whiteboard, maybe a place to sit for kids who are not comfortable sitting on the ground, sit on the sidewalk. That's what I do a lot with kids. And then just personally for me, I carry a few things if I'm teaching outside with kids. Actually, I carry way more than this, but I want to parse it down because I'm an over planner, which comes from my anxiety. So I'm usually packing stuff. But, if you're going to go a little bit away from the school where it's not as convenient just to come back inside, a first aid kit, of course, is nice because kids do things. They need Band-Aids. So just skip the trip to the nurse. I also carry some bandanas. A lot of these activities I noticed after I put this together were like requiring like bandanas for like blindfolds. So I was like, oh yeah, but I usually just keep one on me anyway, because there's lots of different activities I can use. And then these nature circles I have too, they're just like various questions so that when like I'm walking to and from the school to the outdoor site, I usually give the kids like a question to discuss. But that, you could give them a question of whatever, you're learning about in math or reading or things like that. So keeping them engaged from the time that they leave the school and go outside is my point. But before you go outside, of course, it's really important to review the rules for being outside. When I take kids outside, and I know like I'm in a little bit of a different situation being a naturalist, but I just say, like the same rules that you follow inside your school are the same ones we're going to follow outside. And then we review those. Of course, I put in there, be respectful or kind to nature, everything out there. And then I really get them to picture the outdoor space like an outdoor classroom, because kids go outside and they think recess, right? That's really when they're going outside most of the time, is they're running to the playground. So we kind of want to, again, that's where you're kind of building that outdoor muscle by getting them used to going outside. And, it's going to be a classroom just like this that we're in right now, but it's going to have no walls. A couple of classroom management tips, and you all are I'm sure you have, I need to know your tips as well, but things that I've just picked up over the years. I have this vision that I like walk outside with a class and they're just like walking behind me and they're like noticing things and, they're not talking over each other, but that never ever happens. Just a few years ago, I think I finally got over that dream because kids are pushing and they're running ahead and they all are talking to at once. And so I use lines as much as I don't like lines. It's just something the kids know. If they line up, they know how to do that. And, there's certain expectations that when they're in the line, that they are just kind of like programmed to follow. So I do use lines a lot. I try to use 2x2 lines. So I have the kids line up, make 2 lines, and then they partner up with someone next to them. And that's again, when they can, discuss like a question you have for them or something that you need to review, or that's when I get out my nature circles sometimes. And there's questions about, like if you could be, an owl or a hawk, what would you be and why, and things like that. Of course, setting boundaries if you are going to let them loose. Gym teachers have cones and flags and all sorts of stuff. So I usually pop into the gym and see if I can grab a few things. I find, especially with, little kids too, just having that physical barrier of cones or something that they can see, because often it's like, okay, like, there's that pine tree over that way, like, don't go past that. And it's kind of abstract because they're also like super excited to be outside as well. So really clear boundaries if you are going a little bit further. Love my circles outside. So a lot of instruction or talking about what we're going to do. I have the kids circle up. And then if we find something interesting and there's something I want to focus on, I take half of the class and have them kneel around, let's say we found a cool leaf or something. And then the other half of the class stands behind the people that are kneeling. And then eventually we switch. And it's just a way that, managing a group of 26 kids, That way they can get a little bit closer to whatever we're looking at instead of like a great big circle and then everybody wants to like get in and see it, which I can't blame them. It's super exciting. So I just decided to share like 5 games. I had to cut myself off because I can go on and on and on. But I chose some games that I thought could be used for a variety of age groups. And you don't really need, again, like a special outdoor classroom. You can do these anywhere. In fact, some of these you could practice inside the classroom and then take them outside. And with all of these too, I do this a lot, you know, especially with this one game called Sleeping Miser. I usually turn it into some like animal game. So the other day I played it with kids and it was the wolf and the ravens. So, you know, switch things up, make it relevant to what you're studying or animals that are in your area as well. This game is also known as Firekeeper. It was played or has been played by a lot of Native American groups all throughout the United States. So there's like another curriculum tie-in if you are talking about Native American people. I have the resources that I got these games from at the end. A lot of them ended up being from this book, Sharing Nature with Children. I left it at work. I worked from home today. So it's an older book. It's kind of like one of those classics. I have a picture of it at the end as well. And for this one, you know, blindfold is optional depending on your kids, you know, like with little kids or kids maybe that don't want to be blindfolded, you certainly don't have to. They can close their eyes, make sure they're closing their eyes. And then you just need a stick or some object to put in front of them. And I have a video clip here of how to play it, but I'll kind of quickly explain because it's not like just a clip from the game. So there's one child in the middle and it's hard to see here on the forest floor, but I believe there's a stick down there. So you would put a stick down in front of the child who's blindfolded and then everyone else makes a big circle around the child. And then you, or usually I, point to a couple kids and they need to start sneaking up on the kid in the middle and try to steal the stick away. If the child in the middle hears something, they can point to where the sound is coming from. If I get groups of kids that are like doing this, like not putting their hand down, I say, no, you get like 3 guesses per like each person that's trying to sneak up. So they can't just be like, and this is a really fun game. I played this mostly with older elementary. You could definitely try it with younger kids, but it's amazing how they quiet down and like are really focused on playing this game. So here's a little clip from it. The clip I got is like the camera's like a little bit wobbly, so I hope I don't make anybody sick. I don't know that there's actually a whole lot of audio with this one. At some point, we'll have to see if my audio is working.
Maybe they're just being so quiet.
So the kid had put the stick back because he got pointed at. Okay. So yeah, that is my first game. Has lots of different names. It is really fun. I just played it with 5th graders on Monday. They loved it. And if you're inside your classroom, I mean, you could just use whatever, like a pencil. I don't know. I have like just random stuff around here, cards, whatever you'd like. I don't want to play that again. There we go. Okay. So the classic, I don't know if you all are familiar with Oh Dear, it's from Project Wild. And kids seem to love this game too. Again, I've mostly played it with like, maybe like 3rd grade and up, but I've definitely played it with younger kids too. And with all these games too, you can get to a lot of background about it. I mean, with like, you know, Firekeeper, you could talk about Native Americans playing it and what skills it taught, or you can just play it. Don't get hung up thinking like you have to like do all this explaining. The kids will eventually, you know, catch on and you can play it again and go deeper if you want. So with Oh Dear, this is a game where you don't need anything except people. And you want to get about 3/4 of the kids on one side of a field and then about 1/4 of the kids in the class on the other side of the field. The people that are on the one side, the bigger group is the habitat. And so what you do is talk about components of a habitat. What do deer need to survive in their environment? It's kind of broken down really simply. So it's just, for this game, it's water, food, and shelter. And then the smaller group on the other half of the field are the deer. And so the deer need to figure out what habitat component they need, what part of the habitat do they need. And they're gonna make a sign. So if they want shelter, they're gonna make this sign. If they want water, I think it's something like this. And if they want food, they put their hands on their stomach. And so both groups turn their back to each other and everybody picks a habitat component. So the deer then go search for the habitat component on the other side of the field. And I'm gonna play this. Hopefully this will make sense after this. Is there any audio? It's really like soft on my end.
It is playing, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Deer, decide what you want to go after. You may only bring back one. You first walk to the vegetation component with it first. Right? Let's walk quickly, you may not run. Go deer. Go deer, go deer.
So they're supposed to keep up their sign as they are moving towards the habitat. So our poor person in the middle here are deer who did not find what they needed. I don't remember what he is. So if the deer don't find what they need in the habitat, then they die, and we talk about them decomposing and then becoming part of the habitat. So then he would go over to the other side. And eventually, it turns out that there's lots of deer, and then there's only a few habitat components. And I know in Project Wild, it goes into you can count the numbers of deer after every round and make grabs and go really deep into it. Or you can just play it for fun. There's another version too. So with this version, the kids actually have a sign so that they can't switch their sign at the last minute. And this is better for younger grades. I think they just use a manila file folder and pasted food, water, shelter on the different sides of it. So again, the kids are supposed to hold up their sign until they get to the end, but they're having fun. So that's another variation on it. If you have kids that might switch what they're going to be.
This side we have.
Oops. Okay, so my number 3 is, this is actually also from Sharing Nature with Children. I didn't put that in there. This is the human camera. It's often used as a team building game too, but I like to use it. This class that I did was just kind of an introduction to getting outside. So I just let them kind of roam around. But you could also, have it focused on leaves or flowers or rocks or something like that. So basically what happens is that the kids partner off, and one person is, oh, you know what? I found a video. Some of you around my age will like this. This is classic. I just found this video at the last minute that explains how it is. And it's just to me, it's 80s nostalgia. I just love it. So I'm going to play it because it talks about the rules in here.
Now we are ready to experience nature directly. One of the most powerful activities in this video is the camera game. The camera game quiets our thoughts, directing our attention toward nature's beauty.
I'll show you how we'll play the game. Could you please stand up and I'll demonstrate with you. You'll be the camera and I'll be the photographer. The camera goes around with its eyes closed. And then when it's time to take a picture, what I'll do is tap the shoulder twice. And this is a signal to the camera to open its shutter. And then when I tap the shoulder again, that's a signal to close. So let's practice. I'll point you over like this and then close your eyes. And then remember, when I tap, you open And when I tap again, you close. Did she open and close? Good, good. Now when we go, you place your arm there, and then we'll walk in this way. You won't trip over anything. Let's divide up into pairs.
The pairs walk in silence to help increase the clarity of the experience for the person acting as the camera. Each photographer takes 6 or 8 pictures with his camera. Then camera and photographer trade places. Search for beautiful pictures or a series of pictures that tell a story. Ask the camera to use different lenses like the close-up lens. Or move the camera's head from left to right for a panorama shot. Cameras have remarked that they recall their pictures for years afterwards.
Okay. So I do have a couple issues with like touching of the face and head and stuff. I don't know, I'd be uncomfortable with that personally. So I usually just have kids like, tell their partner to kneel or sit or like, like bend down a little bit, but of course, read your group. And then I've also done it as well, where the kids try to, whoever was the camera first, the kid who was blindfolded first, have the blindfolded kid, the camera, try to find where their partner took them. So their partner can kind of like lead them around in circles a little bit and make it more of like a matching game that way. So again, a lot of variation on all of these games.
Now we are ready to experience.
As much as I love that, I don't want to see it again. Okay. So my number 4 this is probably my favorite, not to bias anybody, but so this is just an activity called I Notice, I Wonder, It Reminds Me Of. And I first heard about it when I attended a training, and I believe someone from Three Rivers Park District came to or did a workshop on Beetles, which is a big acronym that I don't remember exactly what it all means, but basically they are a group of environmental educators. They've done a ton of research on like effective learning. They have lesson plans, they have videos, everything lines up with, next generation science standard. It's very like student-led, inquiry-based. So like really cool. If you haven't heard of them, check them out. I will have them listed at the end here as a resource. And then I know on my to-do list here is to make a resource that can go up on the workshop page. You can use a magnifying glass for this. I'm always on the fence about those things a little bit, just because the hand lenses seem to get scratched. They just, I don't know, don't last very long in my experience before they're all scratched up. But it is a cool tool to use as well. I would just encourage like a lot of like practicing and how, to use the hand lens, like put it close to what you want to see. Don't put it up on your eye like a detective would. And so, yeah, I mean, you don't have to have the hand lens, but sometimes I think simpler is better. Just with nothing, just go use your eyes. So this was the group I was talking about too earlier, who I just, walked outside their front door of their school and I was like, hey, like, look around. Like, do you think there's a lot of nature around here? And I had them vote with their thumbs. And I was like, yes, if there's a lot of nature, no, if there's not, and sideways thumbs, like, not sure, maybe. And they're like, no. And some were like, meh. I don't think anybody had their thumb up. So this was like just really rewarding to me as a naturalist to be like, hey, listen, like, we're just going to go explore and we're going to make some observations. And just really quickly, I went over what an observation is. I I just started, with the group I did on Monday. I just did I notice. So I have a video too where someone explains a little bit more about like the whole process. But don't think you have to do like all of it at once. So just start with I notice, and then maybe next time you're out, you can go to I wonder. So this person does a much better explanation than I could. So
when we're making observations, we want to make sure that our kids are making those observations in real time. So these are the physical characteristics that our kids can use their senses to observe. A quick note that an observation is not an identification. I would not want to say that I notice this is an onion, because that is something we already know. And through these observations, we want to learn something new. Also, an observation is not an opinion. We don't want our kids saying, I noticed that this thing looks funny. So again, observations are what we can observe physically in the moment. So let's start with our I notice statements. So simply have your kids look at their object and name a few things that they notice. So with my object, I notice that it's green. I notice that if I roll it in my fingers, it feels round. And I notice that at the top of my object, there is a bunching. So when we're making observations, we want to make sure that our kids are making those observations in real time. So these are the physical characteristics that our kids can use their senses to observe. A quick note that an observation is not an identification. I would not want to say that I notice this is an onion, because that is something we already know. And through these observations, we want to learn something new. Also, an observation is not an opinion. We don't want our kids saying, I noticed that this thing looks funny. So again, observations are what we can observe physically in the moment. So let's start with our I notice statements. So simply have your kids look at their object and name a few things that they notice. So with my object, I notice that it's green. I notice that if I roll it in my fingers, it feels round. And I notice that at the top of my object, there is a bunching of stuff underneath these plant fibers. So once we've made some I notice statements, have your kids ask some I wonder questions. Asking those questions will allow them to make deeper observations of their object. So I wonder what my object smells like. I wonder what's inside of this bunch of stuff. And I wonder what would happen if I swing it around. So once your kids have made those I notice statements, ask those good I wonder questions, it's time now to have them create connections between this observation and an experience or observation they had in the past by making it reminds me of statements. So my object reminds me of chives that I find in the grocery store. My object reminds me of grass growing in my yard. So by using these exploration prompts, our kids and your kids can train themselves to notice what they see. While we use this exploration routine out in the natural world, these 3 prompts can be used on anything that your kids are curious about. On a pencil, a magnifying glass, or even on this bench. So try out this outdoor learning activity in your area and make sure to use the activity guide in the description and head over and share your thoughts, observations, and discoveries with us on our Flipgrid page.
all right. So yeah, that's why I love that. I notice, I wonder, it reminds me of, because like you said, it can be used in so many different environments. And out in that schoolyard that I was at, after we were done, like the kids were so excited. They found lichens and buds and things in the snow, dirt in the snow. I mean, it gets them really amped to learn more. And that's something they can, take home and use in their yard as well. So the fifth activity that I chose to highlight is what is called a sit spot. There are various sources that, have this sort of activity. It's even something that grown-ups can do too. With kids, I have them, spread out and sit down on the ground. And then, depending on the group, depending on their energy level, I might go anywhere from, a minute to like 5 minutes of them just sitting in their spot and observing. And, they can use those I notice, I wonder, it reminds me of statements in their head. If you wanted to have them write things down in a nature journal, sometimes just as a time filler, if I'm, we're waiting on something, I will just have the kids stand wherever they are and take a little step away from each other and listen for 1 minute. And then I have them count the different sounds that they hear on their fingers. You can also look for different colors as well. So there's a lot of different sorts of ways you can incorporate all sorts of things into this activity. And in my ideal naturalist world, kids would be able to go to their spot each month, each season. So if you're a classroom teacher and that's something that you are able to do, visit that spot monthly or even just a couple times a year and see how things change in that spot. It's a really powerful way to connect with nature. Like I said, it's recommended in a lot of books for adults, looking to connect with nature too. So I try to have a sit spot outside just in my front stoop, and I try to get there just for a few minutes every day. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. That's life, right?
Mhm.
So I am just about to kind of wrap things up. I wanted to include a couple of things that I have actually found work really well with classroom of students is using egg cartons to collect anything. I don't know, they just love filling up the little holes in there with, seeds, leaves, plant parts, whatever. And then this is a picnic blanket. I didn't get a picture of what I use, but I have a king bed sheet that I will use mainly when we're collecting seeds or rocks, and I'll have the kids come back and put what they found on the sheet. And then the whole class, usually in 26 kids, can fit around. So they're sitting on the outside of the sheet, and that way everybody can see what is on the sheet. So those are just a couple of my little naturalist hacks for random items. So here are just a few resources if you're interested in learning more. Now, to get over that fear of I don't know what this thing is, there is an app called iNaturalist. I know there's a few other apps out there, but I personally use iNaturalist. I should be a spokesperson for them apparently. But they do have scientists reviewing the data. There's lots of other programs you can be a part of too. For instance, I'm a part of the Minnesota Wildlife Tracking Club, and we can track what tracks we see in iNaturalist. So all kinds of other things. If you want to just crack open a little bit there, you can take a picture of something, or it'll pick up audio as well, and it'll identify to its best, AI knowledge, because it is a robot basically, what the sound or what the animal or plant is. So I really like that. It is an app for Android and iPhones. The Beetles Project, like I mentioned before, has a ton of resources, videos, which I love. I'd rather watch a video than kind of read over something, but they have lesson plans, mostly for older elementary, I would say, but they do have a few things that you can adapt for younger. So I'm obsessed with them. I love them. I want to do all their things. Project Wild is put out by the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies. And in Minnesota, there is someone with the Minnesota DNR who basically you have to take a workshop in order to get this book. It's a thick book of tons of different outdoor lesson plans. I will let you in on a little secret. If you Google "oh dear," it's out there from other DNR departments, not trying to take any money away from the Minnesota DNR, but it is out there because the training does cost money. I get it. And then here is the book I was talking about earlier. It is called Sharing Nature with Children by Joseph Cornell. I honestly just kind of go to the pages that I know have the activities that I want. You know, it is dated a little bit, so just take that into consideration if you're reading something and you're like, I don't know about that. But I just found a YouTube channel with Joseph, it must be Joseph Cornell. I guess I'm not totally sure, but that was where that human camera looked like it was like from the 1980s came from. And so there are some videos on there just showing some other activities from the book as well. And I just remembered before we started that I wanted to plug the Minnesota Association for Environmental Education. If you haven't heard of us, I'll say us because I'm on the conference planning committee. It is a professional organization comprised of classroom teachers, naturalists, scientists, everybody who's interested in nature. And we are going to have the annual conference up at Wolf Ridge, actually, the first weekend in June. So a perfect time to kind of like rest and connect with nature, especially up on the North Shore. It'll be amazing before the end of the school year. And there's the website for more information. And there's my contact information as well. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Email is probably the best way to reach me. And yeah, with that, I'd love to hear like if you've tried these things or if you have other ideas that have worked really well. Yeah, we can kind of just open up the floor for discussion if that's all right, Sue and Emily.
Yeah, that sounds great. Perfect ideas. And I'll just get the ball rolling. And like, I think the sit spot idea, I would like to go, I've done it before. This time of year, I love getting back to a sit spot because every week you could, go out, like whether it's a Forest Friday, you could call it whatever, Wilderness Wednesday, and go out and find a sit spot. And what is changing? That would be great. And I'm going to ask Larry Wade to maybe unmute and share. You had a couple really cute, easy ideas to just step right outside.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Sue. I think the thing that I really like doing with kids is having the kids in pairs, and that then the two kids that are in the front, they're going to become the teachers, and I'll show them, maybe it's a touch station or something, and they have to stay there and teach all the other kids. And then they get in the back of the line. And this, it's such a beautiful experience just to hear the teaching, and they're having so much fun sharing. And I would really recommend that. So it's, and I'd be happy to share that with anybody who's interested. If they want more info.
No, thanks. That just keeps everybody, when we have to walk from place to place. You, Sue, you mentioned being 2x2 and stuff. And I put the Acorn Naturalist link with those nature card rings because they have them for a pretty decent price, but you could always come up with your own questions too. You don't have to, purchase anything. But then I like the ones, Larry, you said just even 7 steps outside. You called that fox hike?
Yeah, different, like this hike, and it's not, you really shouldn't be counting because then the kids end up just counting and not looking.
Okay, there you go.
They walk a little bit and then they have to stop like a fox and then look around, and then they move on. So it's just, it's a gimmick kind of deal,
It's
but
kind of like human camera, just another spin on human camera. And then they're their own personal camera as being the fox looking around.
Exactly. Yeah, thanks.
Comment got brought up too about iNaturalist being that to have an iNaturalist account, you do need to be 13 years or older. They have a version for younger students called Seek. Kind of has different features, things like that, especially that the iNaturalist has the very scientific community aspect of it and Seek. It's kind of, I phrase it as the way that kids can put their ideas out there and it's not like wrecking data. But Seek also has the feature where if you put your phone up to it and before you even take the picture, it kind of can get you down to species level. It's pretty cool. And on iNaturalist, it's not just scientists IDing the things, it is all over the iNaturalist community. Joe Valesky here for fun at night, he sits on iNaturalist and IDs things. So does another friend of mine. I was here at Wolfridge 2 weeks ago and I had some kids that had a stick with some stuff on it. No, I don't know what this is. I'm like, okay, here. We'll take a picture of it. I'll put it on iNaturalist. So that way, you know, they were too young to have the program. So I took the picture, put it on iNaturalist. And I said, my friend will probably ID it. He IDs all these different little things on the North Shore. And the teacher I was with, she goes, is his name Sam? And I said, yeah. She goes, he IDs all my different things on there. And so she knew him from iNaturalist, which was hilarious. But yeah,
people like to puzzle, other people like to ID. Come on, you know,
Yep.
each their own, and we're thankful that they all have their special talents.
Mhm.
So do you ID then tracks, animal tracks for other people? You mentioned
Yeah.
that you're
We do a whole collection here at Wolfridge every year with the Nat Years. We do like a challenge. Kiana's on this Zoom right now. Kiana was leading our iNaturalist challenge for a very long time. I'm pretty sure she's, well, it's hard to beat Joe, but I think she's second to Joe. We all put in our observations in this project, and then we have this year-long kind of challenge between us on who can get the most species, who can get the most identifications. It's just pretty fun.
I find iNaturalist really interesting. One time I had someone contact me who said, you've ID'd a spider in Washington County that hadn't been documented yet. I was doing stuff when I go to the different state parks and I was taking pictures of everything, including the plantain. And this gal got in contact with me and she said, I just want to tell you to continue doing that because we're doing a lot of research on this plant. We don't have anybody taking pictures. And then I was also contacted about collecting milkweed for someone else who was doing research. So, you know, I had no idea we get that kind of thing going on, but that's been kind of fun.
Well, just wait, pretty soon, my friend Sam, he's really into very obscure things like galls, and he had a picture of some kind of fungus this weekend, and he was contacted from someone and they asked him to send him a sample of that because they'd never seen it in this area. They wanted to study it. So now he's like going out collecting samples for people from iNaturalist, which is awesome.
citizen science at its best. This is cool. Thanks for sharing, Kathy. That was really interesting, and congratulations for great observations. That's way cool. Anybody else want to share or have a question?
Sue, I really like your thought too of having the big sheet out there. I've had in my last classroom, I got a classroom set of like camp chairs for kids that rolled up and then kept in a big box in my classroom because, man, it's amazing how much more kids are willing to go sit outside when they have something to sit on.
Yes, totally. Yeah, at the Nature Center, we just ordered some like foam sheets and like we're in the process of cutting them to make kids a little more comfortable. But
yeah,
that's affordable.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. It doesn't have to be, you know, like a $20 Crazy Creek Maya school. I asked for the money and they gave it to me, but something as foam pads that makes a huge difference to kids.
Who did you just get some foam from a like a hardware store, or what kind of foam are you using?
That is a great question. I don't know. Our program coordinator ordered it. I'm pretty sure it was off Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't quite remember all the
That's
details.
okay.
But yeah,
But that's another
I can get them.
good idea. But yeah, I've used just, you know, a stadium pad basically, you know, and had donations and that worked well. But you're right, your bunzos don't get quite so cold and it's kind of nice. So Way to go.
Something I've done with a sit spot, but it was as an adult, but I could see middle school and high school kids doing it. So you're sitting more than just a minute or 5 minutes. You're sitting maybe 10 or 15 minutes. And we were basically trying to observe everything about birds that were around us, but we were very separate. And then when we came back, we talked about what we saw. And at one point I said, it just got deadly quiet. Everything stopped. And someone else said, oh, I saw a red-tailed hawk over by me. So you get some kind of cool stories coming out of all of that. So I could see that working with older kids that would sit longer.
Mhm.
Well, Sue posted the CEU link in the chat for anyone who's looking for that.
And then upcoming in April, because we're going to take a little bit of a break now, because we know schools are going to be going on to spring breaks and such. So we have a little pause on our webinar. But April 13th, we have some gals from Wilderness Inquiry, and they're going to be sharing a freshwater quest that they do. Part of it is online, and students can create some of their own like mini projects, like mini observations, experiments, but they also have a floating classroom, AKA a canoe mobile. So we might be out canoeing with some people at Wilderness Inquiry, and that will be interesting. And on the 27th, we have several presenters from our University of Minnesota Extension Services going to share with us about pollinators. I know one of the women, I've heard her speak before, and it's all about the bumblebees. And they are just really fun to study. They're actually very gentle. And once the kids see that they can be close to a bumblebee, it's empowering. So I hope you can join us. Other than that, I'd just like to say thanks to Sue. Fabulous ways to just remind us, get outside. The weather's getting nice. Next week, 40s and 50s here in the Twin Cities.
Yeah, it was ski season.